Look, I don't even know what this is supposed to be. I'm probably supposed to know what this is supposed to be. But I saw it on the market and it lit up. And I was like, güey, tienes luz. Qué bien, cómpralo a la chingada. And so I bought it because I was like, wait, loose. But I don't even know what this is. I really don't. And I'm not going to do the whole show in it because it feels like I'm wearing a face mask. And you know how I feel about those. But I could probably pull this off and call it a face mask. But if I wore this the entire time, we wouldn't be able to see my baby blue. And we can't have that, can we? Oh, my lenses are disgusting. Anyways, you know what time it is. It's the El Gav Show. And I thought we'd do one. I actually had the camera set up. I was working. Guys, I've been making videos. I've been actually posting videos on my other channel, the Simon Studios channel, photography-related videos. Because I have to focus sometimes on what makes money and pays the bills and buys tacos. Because the truth is, this channel doesn't make a ton because most of the viewers want to see me out getting beat up by cops. And I don't really want to be out getting beat up, chased, ran off, and turned into a refugee. Not that I don't film cops still when the need arises, but I'm not a crazy man. I'm not a crazy badass like James Freeman, who's just out there all day like, hola, policia. See, we're here. We're live, and I'm always looking for new ideas for the channel. I'm always open to new ideas for the channel. But for now, until I come up with something spectacular, I do little live streams like this. Hey, Andy, everybody, Billy Cooper, Knife Sharp, Child of God, Robert, Kill a Cow, Safety Man, all you guys in there. William, good to see you. New Edge Designs, everybody. And yes, let's talk a little bit. Tell me what you want to talk about in today's show, because I'm only going for 30 minutes. So I'm going to cut it at 9 Central Time. I think that's what I'm on down here. We don't think about the clock too much in Mexico. We think more about tacos. All right. Gavin, look into cryptocurrency. Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you guys a little story. And we're going to talk about crypto for a minute. Because everyone's talking about crypto. What's Bitcoin at right now? Bitcoin. Hang on. Bitcoin. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. To USD. What's Bitcoin looking at to USD right now? Like 64, 65K. So it's high, right? It's high. Hey, James Freeman. Good to see you in there. Crypto is the new fiat. Yes, crypto is the new fake money. So that's actually a good topic because everyone's talking about crypto. And I see all these posts, saying, oh, I'm exploding. How's your crypto portfolio going? And the same could be said for any stock. I'm going to tell you a story about crypto. It must have been 2000. I don't even remember the year. 2009 is when I first started studying Bitcoin. I don't remember exactly when it was, but when I first started looking into Bitcoin, it cost $35 for a Bitcoin. Now contrast that to today, and Bitcoin is at 65,000 more or less. When I came to Mexico in 2017, the end of 2017, I remember it being a big deal because it crossed 20,000, and I had some Bitcoin. I was trading a little bit of Bitcoin. Up till a few months ago, I had about a tenth of a Bitcoin, and I think it hit about 30 last fall, and business was tight. I mean, the COVID stuff and all the stuff, hasn't done wonders for my photography business. So thank you, Child of God, for the super chat. That is 20 tacos, and I will enjoy those, and so will the kids. So Bitcoin, when I didn't just hear about it on the news, I was like, what is this? Because I've always been a nerd. And so I started studying Bitcoin when it was at $34. That was at the time when you could still go to these little fountains. There were sites, and they would trickle out cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin it wasn't like Bitcoin was the king, right? I mean, it may have been the king at the time, but it wasn't that valuable. It was still kind of a toy. So you could go to these sites and they would just give you a little bit. It wasn't a lot. I don't even remember how much those of you that were in it early on remember how much the little fountains, and you go to these sites and it would give you, you would create a wallet and it would give you a little bit of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin was about $35, or was it 60? I don't know, but it was well under 100. And so I got a little bit of free Bitcoin at that point because they were giving it out for free. And it wasn't a lot. And when Bitcoin started climbing, I tried to find that wallet and I never did find it. Another problem with cryptocurrency, it's not real. It's nothing. It's no more than bits. It has no more inherent value. Cryptocurrency has less inherent value than a penny. At least a penny is metal and you can melt down and make something. I know it's fiat currency. It's not backed by gold or anything really solid. Paper money is pretty much useless. But I guess at least you can make a paper airplane out of paper money. So Eddie says if you hate Bitcoin, it's because you didn't get in early. But if you've been listening to my story, I got into Bitcoin before probably almost everyone here got into Bitcoin. And it never excited me that much. Obviously, when you're looking back in retrospect and something's valuable, it's like, oh, sure. Some days I'm like, man, I wish I bought like 10 Bitcoin when it was $30. But you could say that for any investment that turns out to be good. And the problem I have with Bitcoin, and I don't hate Bitcoin. I just got other things to spend my money on and to invest my money in, and I'm trying to do my own businesses and things like that. And I was a little sad to have to sell the little bit of Bitcoin that I had because it was kind of like this little reserve sitting there and I could watch it go up and down. But Bitcoin is like that. It's almost like day trading. You're hoping that it goes up. Here's the problem though. Bitcoin is not really a currency. And I was talking to someone about this recently. And I said, the problem with Bitcoin, it's being touted as the new currency. It's the way to evade the government. Number one, Bitcoin isn't evading the government. The higher it goes, the more the government is watching it. Major Bitcoin outlets are reporting directly to the government. And it's getting harder and harder to deal with it. They're going to make tools and laws and fines and prisons to control people. People like Ross Ulbricht are still sitting in prison for being involved in Bitcoin and free trading on the internet and trying to exclude the government from controlling our lives and making us slaves. So the problem I have with Bitcoin is not that it's terrible. If you have some extra money and you want to buy Bitcoin and you think you can make some money, it's cool. It's fascinating. Crypto is fascinating. I've had Ether, Bitcoin. I still have some of the minor coins that haven't really exploded. I don't even remember all of them. Bitcoin is very regulated. Bitcoin is actually more regulated than fiat currency for the most part. If you come down here to Mexico, here's 100 pesos. People are not paying taxes when they're trading these. Sure, if you're doing credit cards and all that kind of stuff, the government wants their cut. But people are still trading these mostly outside of banks because the government doesn't really control them that much. Probably Bitcoin is more controlled than paper fiat currency. But Bitcoin is also a fiat because it has no inherent value. The third thing against Bitcoin is that it's not actually being used as money. It's being used as a collector's item. And again, I don't hate Bitcoin. It's just not the solution to our woes. It's not going to undermine the government. They're just going to take control of it if it continues to stay relevant, or maybe it won't be relevant in time. So it's not that I don't have any crypto. I still have a little bit. I don't believe I have any Bitcoin right now because I sold it because I needed some cash. And it's interesting. But people aren't actually using it as money. They're not spending and trading. You don't go into the store. Sure, some people accept Bitcoin. But the reality is most people that have Bitcoin, they want to see it go up. They don't want to use it as a currency. I don't have fear of going out and buying 10 tacos with this 100 peso bill. Because it could fade in value. It's going to every day because of inflation, because this isn't real money either. But I know it's not going to be worth 1,000 pesos or 10,000 pesos or $50,000 tomorrow. This is more or less $5. It was more or less $5 a year ago, and it'll be more or less $5 probably a year from now, but it goes up and down a little bit. So the Bitcoin I would think of is more of a stock. And when I see people being all presumido, being all big shots, like, oh, I have Bitcoin and you don't, I was smarter because I got in, I got it. It's kind of like a person saying, like, imagine if you had a friend in a suit and he was always on Facebook and he was always like, oh, did you people get into Microsoft stock? Did you people get into Apple stock when it was low? Do you have Google stock? Oh, because I'm watching my portfolio soar through the roof. It's feeling pretty amazing watching the stock and the S&D RPC 500 soar today. I bet you're wishing you had got in. Honestly, the Bitcoin hypesters sound like hucksters. And it's a little embarrassing because a lot of them are my friends. And I know it's exciting when you have something and the value's going up. I totally get that. Because when I sold my Bitcoin a few months ago, I had bought it at like 12,000 and it was up to like 30 and I didn't have very much, but I did make some money. And then 2 months later, it was at 60 and I was like, oh crap, if I had only waited, right? So this is the problem with this. Chivos Adventures, thanks for the 10 tacos, the 100 pesos. I appreciate it. I've got like 15 tacos. No, I've got like 30 tacos now. So that's 2 days of food. Thank you all. All right, let's not get too caught up on Bitcoin. I'm not hating on you if you have crypto. I have some crypto. Maybe you have some crypto. I'm just saying don't put your eggs in things that don't have inherent value, that you can't eat, that you can't live on. I prefer to put my faith in things that are tangible and in God. And some of you will make fun of me of that too, but hey, I'm not going to make fun of you if you like crypto. It's cool. It's cool. Just try to keep a perspective. Bitcoin, Beanie Babies, Pokemon cards. Yeah, I mean, admittedly, Bitcoin has exploded a little more than Beanie Babies and lasted a little longer if you look at its curve, but James Freeman is pretty much spot on. I bought my wife for $50 via government marriage license, and she's worth way more than $50. Yes, exactly, James, and things go up in value. Thank you for that insight. Wives are good. Okay, so what else are we going to talk about? I'm not going to do the whole show. But remember, I said 30 minutes. We have got 15, like 17 más or menos minutes left. I've been shooting camera videos today. I did a camera review. It'll be up on my other channel. So I was looking at the Fuji X-T3, the Fuji X-E3, comparing it with my new Fuji X100V, which I use for street photography, like this over here. Let me switch to the screen. Here's my latest street photo called The Birds. There's a couple videos about this on my other channel too, because I was pretty freaking excited about it. And then I was comparing it to like this camera, which is my Sony. And so that is what I've been doing this afternoon, is doing photography videos for the Sime channel. So, should we talk about guns before we wrap up the show? Because you know I like to hit you. You know I like to hit you guys with the reality as I see it. And I try to see it, everyone's biased, but I try not to see it from left or right. I try to see it like from having compassion and using common sense and not being a slave to party or faction. And that's why I ended up having to leave the States and didn't get a lot of support up there, because everyone wants you to be a member of their club, their church, their party, their faction. And I don't want a faction. I'm not into a faction. The only team I need to be on is loving my neighbor and acting like Jesus. So I feel like everyone's talking about this Alec Baldwin, this Rust movie thing, and it's a sad deal, right? And the way that this all went down, and he shot, was it one person was shot and cinematographer Hala Hutchins died. And so there's all this chatter and memes and the left and the right, and there's one thing I've seen in all of this, you know. And I know, guys, I know some of you are like, well, this was a ritual, it was an initiation, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know, I mean, like, the world is an evil place, but the fact is, we always want to make it about some profound thing or some big conspiracy that we can't prove. And I've never understood, I shouldn't say I've never understood, for a long time I've never understood why we're fighting over like flat earth when the government is literally muzzling us and trying to force us to inject experimental chemicals, right? So like, I'm always like, focus. Our liberties and rights are being shredded in the recent years. And it's just getting worse and worse as they use the technology. Our speech that we thought we had on social media, I have to be careful the words that come out of my mouth here because automatic intelligent algorithms will censor me if I place my words incorrectly. And we're fighting about things that are on the level of whether Bigfoot exists, right? Blurry photos, satanic rituals. We're fighting about who's a trafficker when the police and the government and the border patrol are the #1 human traffickers on the planet. And we don't have to shroud ourselves in mist and mysticy to show that evidence. It's out there in the open, and we're accepting that while we get distracted with all this other stuff. Like the Fourth Reich. That's right, Mr. Boston. So when I see all this stuff about someone dying on a movie set, and there's and one side is saying, oh, this is why guns need to be controlled, and the other side is like, Alec Baldwin is an idiot, and they're laughing and they're saying, you know, oh, this guy had no gun training, he's super anti-gun, and this is what he gets. I just want to be like, whoa, stop. Someone died, okay? But you know what? If we want to be perfectly honest, yes, James. And I think most of these conspiracy distractions, you know, sacrificing children and things like that are a psyop to keep us distracted. I'm not saying they don't happen, and that if there's evidence and we can stop things like that we shouldn't. But I mean evidence. We have real evidence that the government traffics our children through places like CPS. We have real evidence that the Border Patrol are human traffickers that destroy rights, that separate families, that prevent people's right to travel. That's real evidence. And so when we have real evidence, we absolutely should expose and resist. But when we have Bigfoot, Yeti, blurry photo level evidence, you know, and I've looked at some of this stuff. Hillary Clinton is horrible. But I've looked at this so-called evidence of like, oh, this is what they do, and they inject this, and they extract this from little children and all this stuff. And the stuff that people are promoting as evidence is like screen grabs from horror movies. I mean, it's not, most of it is not even hard. Most of it, with like 10 minutes on the internet, you can get to the bottom of the imagery that's being called evidence. And it's really important that as freedom lovers, we demand evidence, not the hearsay of our own mob. Because if we accept the hearsay and the fabricated fantasies of our own mob, we are the lynch mob. We're no better than the other side. And I see this all the time, and I've caught so much flack because I'm always opposing every side, every faction, every church group, you know, like not opposing the individuals, but the propaganda that comes from this side and that side to try and make themselves the good guys, the left, the right, the Republicans, the Democrats, the Libertarians. And it puts you in this place in the middle that's kind of no man's land. And it's a little bit of a dangerous and lonely place sometimes. But you have to speak the truth, because truth is how you get to love and freedom. The conspiracy is right there in front of you. So when I see all these people throwing about Alec Baldwin, look, let's talk practical, right? There's a lot of people on that movie set. And I don't want to throw out hearsay because we're only seeing what's in the news, and we know the news spins things on one side or the other. We're seeing in the conservative news and they spin things. It's not relevant if Alec Baldwin is a jerk, that he disagrees with your politics. What's relevant is that a really bad accident, presumably. I know we can say, oh, this was a ritual or this or that, but no, we can't. You can't just make that stuff up so that you can sensationalize when there's absolutely no credible evidence to it. And the fact is, the person presumably, based on the information we have, the person, I believe her name was Hannah, who was the armorer on that set, put a live round in that gun, was not an anti-gunner. She was an armorer from a family. Her dad was an armorer on movie sets. Her family's super into guns. And that was a really dumb thing to do. If you're on a set using guns, like in my mind, right, it's easy for me to say sitting here, the number one first thing you should do is not have live ammunition if you're doing play guns to make a film. The live ammunition should be far away. So, first problem. Second problem. The person responsible who's literally being paid to manage the arms and supervise the arms for people who are not experienced necessarily with guns, presumably put live rounds in a gun. Guys, I've seen blanks and I've seen live rounds. How do you mix up the two? They shouldn't be in the same box. But if you're about to hand a gun to someone to point in the general direction of someone else to make a pretend scene, you really should know that. So there's the second failure. Then the gun is handed to what? An assistant director, I think. The gun was handed to someone else, is what the articles are saying, who takes the gun from the armorer, takes it to the set, and says there's a cold gun on the set, meaning it doesn't have live rounds. Now, the person saying there's a cold set, even if you have an armor. So first of all, the person getting paid to make sure this thing is ready to use failed. And that was a gun person, guys. That was not the gun hater. The second person, who presumably, based on the reports, said cold gun on the set, that person didn't look the gun. The first thing I do when someone hands me a gun is I check its status. And I teach my kids to do that. The first thing I do is make sure it's not pointed at someone. And these are basic gun safety regulations. And I recognize, I see this all the time down here, guys. The police and military barely know how to hold a gun without pointing it. You can literally, they will have a machine gun mounted on top of a Humvee and be cruising down the road thinking they're all badass. And they'll see a hot girl walk by and they'll go like this and be pointing a machine gun at the hot babe walking down the street. That's how bad their training is. My 13-year-old son knows how to handle a gun better than most of the police and the military that I've seen down here, okay? I'm just putting that into perspective because that's the government. This isn't a thing about how incompetent government is, but they totally are. And so it's not difficult for someone who's not been trained properly. That's why I always teach my kids, even if it's just with a BB gun, I teach them how you handle a gun because it's a good thing to know. So then the third failure is presumably Alec Baldwin, who they say was practicing drawing, and he's practicing drawing with a gun with his finger on the trigger. So the other thing that you always know if you know anything about guns, and if you're handling guns on a set and trying to do a movie, it always blows me away how technically inaccurate movies are. Like if I'm making a video, or if I was making a real movie about a topic, I would want to make sure that it was at least somewhat accurate, right? And so it always kind of blows my mind how far off base the accuracy is. So if I'm playing a gunslinger, even if I don't know guns, you would think I would want to know about guns for the sake of my role. And maybe that's not how most of the world thinks. But so we had at least 3 people from the sound of it that actually failed, and they weren't all gun haters. They weren't all libs. They weren't, so you can't take this and always spin it. And if you're out there like Alec Baldwin was an anti-gunner idiot and that's why this happened. No, this happened because a lot of people failed. If it was an accident, which presumably it was. And I know people are saying, oh, it wasn't an accident. There was a plan. It's a scheme. I get that you can look at this and be like, how did this happen? But the point is, how did he shoot 2 people? Well, according to the reports, the bullet went through the woman and into the other person. If you've seen a set of a movie, there's a lot of people around. And the angle you're seeing from the camera is that direction. But the cameramen are over here. right? So they're saying, oh, why didn't the actors get shot and the cameraman? Because the cameraman would have been in front organizing. They're off camera. They're over here where my camera is. And if I'm drawing a gun and I shoot my lens and I'm like, oh, crap, right? This never should have happened. So we can debate about why it happened and all this stuff. But what I'm getting to here is I don't care about our hyperbole from our parties. If someone dies, we should have compassion. We should sympathize. If an accident happens with a gun, the gun owners, the gun proponents are making the wrong argument. Just like I said years ago, we're trying to prove that guns are safe and we shouldn't be. This was back in 2014 with the I Will Not Comply rally, was the biggest felony civil disobedience rally in Washington State, maybe in U.S. history, and it was a gun rally that I was involved in. And I was saying on the interviews, we're making the wrong argument. We're trying to argue statistics and how safe guns are. It's like saying we shouldn't ban cars because cars are safe. Look at the statistics. Cars are not safe. Airplanes, commercial airplanes, are much safer than cars. We shouldn't ban cars because we have a right to travel and people have a right to make choices. Now, more guns in the hands of people don't make the world an unsafer place, and they don't make more crime. If people have a right to protect themselves, it tends to make less crime, especially from government, who is afraid of those people. It's always the government, as we know, that wants to take people's right to defend themselves. But again, we're making the wrong argument. People are like, oh, Alec Baldwin was an idiot. He didn't know how to use a gun. He's just one of those anti-gun people, and then look, he's out shooting people. The argument is not we should have guns because they're safe. We should be able to protect ourselves because it's a fundamental human right. And I've always said that. And the NRAers and the people that believe in permits and the people that believe in felons not having the right to protect themselves when a felon means nothing in a corrupt court system, they're the same as the anti-gunners. They just want privileges for those who are in their faction, who are on their team, who align with their politics. And that's not freedom. And this is why when we had one of the biggest, most substantial gun rallies in history of the United States, the NRA was nowhere to be seen because they said we were doing damage to the cause because we said we will not comply. A lot of you might remember that. So when people don't like what I say, they're like, oh, Gavin's just, Gavin's a lib, right? And I'm far from the anti-gunner. I'm far from the left and I'm far from the right. I want freedom. I want justice. I want us to care about each other. Accidents happen. The fact that accidents happen, and accidents happen all the time, and people are like, oh, what an idiot, what an idiot. I hate that when people are in a sport or an activity, the person that commits the accident is always an idiot. Right? Until it's them. Anyone can have an accident with a gun. When I look at what happened on this movie set, I'm like, wow, a lot of people failed to use their safety, to use sense, and to think it through. How did that happen, and how can it be prevented in the future? Because that sucks. A lot of people are hurting because of that. But it's not an argument one way or the other for gun rights. I don't need to argue. I shouldn't need to argue for the right to defend my family. And at the same time, I shouldn't be out thumping my chest, waving guns all over the place necessarily. Maybe there's a time for that. But just to show how macho I am, because that reeks of desperation as well. Someone who has the confidence and the freedom and the will to protect their family doesn't need to constantly run around thumping their chest, in my opinion. And so, yes, while we still have people like Jeff Winehouse, like Schaefer Cox, like Julian Assange, I can't even name them all. The list is endless. Sitting in prisons for non-crimes while we sit out here and scrap over faction. We're missing the point. While we sit over and scrap over whatever the latest distraction in the news is, whatever the latest political media theater is, an accident happened and it sucked and it should be prevented in the future. It doesn't make the argument for taking away our right to protect ourselves anymore. And it doesn't give us the right to mock the people who are hurt or who made a mistake, because accidents happen among trained gun users all the time, just like they happen among trained drivers. Oh, I've been driving for 20 years. I don't know how this happened, because accidents happen. It's the sad, cruel reality of the world. And that's why I try to be careful, and I try to have faith, and I try to look to God to watch over me, because otherwise I'm screwed. I mean, these bodies are not very freaking tough. And sometimes it's amazing to me that we live as long as we do, as easy as it is to die. And yes, Mr. Boston, we have more political prisoners than Russia and China combined. That, I believe that is correct. And we have the highest per prison capita in the world. So as we point the finger at these regimes and say how terrible they are, while we wave our flag, we're the hypocrites. Because we are the terrorist nation. We are the communist fascist state. The U.S. is the polar opposite of a free state. And so while there's lots of problems in Mexico, there's things that frustrate me, there's bureaucracy, there's corruption, and I wish I had a better understanding and grasp of the culture and means to resist it. The violence, you know, people say, look at the violence in Mexico. It's more open. The corruption is less organized, but the corruption is way higher from the U.S. The U.S. corruption is manipulating the entire planet, you guys, and has the highest number of prisoners, the highest human trafficking in the world, in its prisons. Anne says, Gavin, you don't understand Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a store of value. And I do understand Bitcoin. I've been studying Bitcoin since long before most of you ever heard of Bitcoin, because I'm kind of an early adopter kind of person. And Bitcoin is a collector's item. It's a stock investment. It's not a real currency that has any real value. And eventually it will probably fade, but that doesn't mean it's not relevant. If you can make money off Bitcoin today because of your knowledge of it, because you're mining, I think it's very fascinating, all the cryptocurrencies. But it's just like, stop getting hung up on these little things. Bitcoin won't save us. Debating about whether the moon landing was real or whether the earth is flat won't save us. There's real things happening. And I do have some Dogecoin as well. There's real things happening. So stop getting distracted. And I think that's the main message of this, is whether it's about Alec Baldwin and that tragedy, or whether it's about Bitcoin, or whether it's about the weather, whatever, you're always being thrown something to distract. And unless you train yourself to stop believing what your faction says and say, wait a minute, where's the evidence of that? Okay, I get that that may be true, but that photo you have is not evidence. That's a screenshot from a video game. You have to have critical thinking. We don't have near enough critical thinking. Folks, if we want freedom, we need to teach critical thinking, not following whatever herd you're a member of. Okay, guys. In Time says, I'm a millionaire from Dogecoin. We'll throw something in the super chat, bro, because we could use some tacos down here. I don't know if anyone's a millionaire from Dogecoin, but play around with all this stuff. I think learning is pretty much always a good thing. Chris Johnson says, yodel. I will probably blow the mic if I yodel. I feel like the mic's a little hot today. Yodel. And my voice is tired. Look at that. Look at that. Currency of the taco. I always say that the currency here should be the taco. One unit, one money should represent a taco. There should be an international standard. And then your currency would be backed by food. Imagine that. So imagine if the government issued a currency, a coin, and it was called the taco. People laugh at me, but I think this would be a real currency. And there was a central taco stand in the capital. And it wouldn't, maybe the tacos would probably suck there. But the point is that the size of those tacos, the weight of those tacos, what those tacos were would represent this coin. And you could always go and trade one taco for a taco, which would mean that your money was always backed by food. What if money was backed by food? I know because it's called the taco, it seems a little silly. It's a little too basic. But I guess that's why they'll never make me the president of Mexico. What can I say? Okay, that's all you get for yodeling. All right, you guys, it has been 30 minutes. I'm going to wrap this up for the night. Thank you to our super chatters. Thanks to the channel backers, to our Patreon subscribers, and to those of you that support the show here. Let me know what you want to see. If you guys watch, if you like, if you share, if you subscribe, I'm just going to do more videos. And I'm working all the time over here. I'm working with cameras, and I'm working on my other channel over at Sime, the Sime Studios channel. If you just search Sime, there's actually another channel. It's just called Sime, and you could sub that one, and that's my photo related and reviews related channel. So that is what we talked about tonight on the LGAB show. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope you guys are staying as much as possible away from being experiments for the government and for falling for the propaganda. Don't fall for faction. Don't fall for propaganda from any side. Try to love your neighbor as yourself and be fighters. And thank you. I will try to do more videos. A lot of it is just a time thing, a time allotment thing of I have to feed the family and make content and make new software products that I sell and things like that, because that's my day job. Pero si todos gustan los tacos, ten un buenas noches de México, donde estás la mejor tacos en el mundo. Gracias a todos por tu ayuda, por tu apoyo y por la 30 tacos que me das esta noche en la super chat. Buenas noches. All right, you guys. You have a good one. Peace out.